welcome and welcome back. I'm really excited to be filming today because we're going to be talking about some different doll brands than normal. A lot of you probably know that I am based in the United States, which means that the doll brands that I collect and therefore talk about are the ones typically that are mass-produced here. If I can walk into a Target or Walmart, those are kind of the dolls that I tend to collect, and like I said, that means that those are the ones that I'm usually going to be talking about here on this channel. But I was thinking the other day kind of about different doll brands that are produced around the world. So how Mattel and MGA make a lot of United States dolls, I was kind of wondering, what companies are out there in other countries and what their dolls look like. So that is what we are going to be talking about today. I am not a top tier researcher by any means. I feel like I make that very apparent in a lot of my videos. So I did ask you guys for some help with suggesting brands for me to look into. So a big thank you to MagickPaws S and Jakub Leśnik, hope I said that right, both here on YouTube. They commented on my community post and let me know some brands that I should look into. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So the first doll brand that we are gonna be talking about today is Licca Chan. She was one that my friend in real life had actually brought up to me and that I kind of knew a little bit about beforehand, so she's kind of what started me down this path. Licca Chan is a doll brand that is produced by Takara. Again, hope I'm saying that right. My pronunciation is not perfect, even in English. But she is produced by Takara. She started to be produced in 1967, and she is very much kind of the Japanese answer to Barbie. There's actually a whole history there where Japanese markets liked Licca Chan better than Barbie. And so she is kind of that equivalent, where she's a doll brand that has been thriving for decades now. Interestingly, when she was originally designed, she was designed to be representative of someone who is half Japanese and half French, which I thought was very interesting. And she's also designed to be portrayed as being 11 years old as like her main doll. Of course, just like with any doll brand that's around for that long, they're going to start branching out. So I know there's younger versions or older versions, but the original doll was supposed to be 11 years old. Overall, on a personal note, I think that she is a really, really cute doll. The face is absolutely adorable. She has a lot of accessories that you can buy. Like, accessories and playsets have always been a really, really huge thing for the Licca Chan brand, which I think is interesting and also very fun. And she also does a lot of kind of brand collaborations where she might represent like Sanrio characters or something like that, have a dress with their designs on it, which I think is really cool. So overall, I do like that. The only thing that I'm a little iffy with on Licca Chan dolls is their arms are like a little odd to me. They're kind of giving me like noodle arm vibes. That could just be me, but that's the only thing. I think the arms look a little bit off in my personal opinion, but overall I think she's actually a very, very cute doll. The next doll brand that we are going to be looking at is Anko. So Anko is a Australian brand that sells in Kmart, and they actually make a bunch of different stuff, so the Anko dolls are just their dolls. And these are really fascinating to me. I did look on the Australian Kmart website, and I personally didn't see any listed there. I don't know if they have been discontinued or if I couldn't access it because I'm not in Australia or what was going on there, but I didn't see any currently. However, there's like a history of discussion about these dolls. They are, for one thing, very, very cheap. One post that I saw from, I believe, 2018 or 2019 was talking about them being $4. That's Australian dollars, so they actually would be $3 in the United States, which is like so crazy cheap for a doll. That's a dollar store price. But they actually have really great detail. Like, I would say that they are on par, if not better, than the Barbie Fashionistas for half the price. What do Barbie Fashionistas go for now? For so little. I just think it's crazy. And they also have really, really incredible representation and diversity. They have a lot of differently abled dolls with prosthetics or crutches or in wheelchairs, and they also have family packs that you can buy where there might be 2 dads or 2 moms. And I just think that's really incredible that for such a cheap price point and someplace that's like widely available like Kmart, they would have something like that. So big props to that. I was really, really all for it. I hope they aren't discontinued. That would be kind of sad, but that's all I got. Let me know down in the comments below if you know anything more about kind of their future, or if they're still a thing. Next up, we have got the Steffi Love dolls. They are produced by a German toy brand called Simba Toys. All I can really say about her is that she is very like Barbie, to the point where Mattel, we know how US-based doll companies, Mattel and MGA, love their lawsuits. They actually filed a suit and were trying to stop Simba Toys from being able to produce Steffi Love dolls in that current state because they looked so much like Barbie. Interestingly though, the German courts ruled that you couldn't put a copyright on a concept like a doll just coming with accessories. So they're still allowed to sell. You know, they didn't want Mattel to have kind of a monopoly with Barbie in the markets over there, which I think is very, very interesting. But looking at them, they look a lot like Barbie. I'm not the biggest fan of Barbie. I don't hate them, but they're just not standout dolls to me. So they're fine. That's kind of all it is. It's like, yeah, it's a doll. Lastly, I'm going to be talking about Lottie dolls produced by a UK brand called Arclu. Once again, pronunciation, I don't know. I do know that they are originally produced in the UK, but they have warehouses and production facilities in other countries as well, so these are a little bit more widespread than the other ones I might be talking about. These dolls are actually based on 9-year-olds, which was very interesting for me. I thought it was fascinating that these and then the Licca Chan dolls were based on kind of younger children as opposed to more of like the high school dolls like we see with Monster High and Rainbow High and that sort of thing. I will say that on like a child play level, I think that they would be very, very appealing. They come with a lot of themes, I guess is the best way to put it, where they might be an eco-activist or a fossil hunter or that sort of thing, which I think is really cool, and I think that it also allows kids who are playing with these dolls to kind of get more involved in that sort of thing. So I think that as like a play line, they are not only nice dolls, but also probably very beneficial for the kids who are playing with them. That being said, as a collector, just in general, I don't like kids dolls as much. For me personally, like I've never been a baby doll fan or like a kids doll fan. So they're definitely not for me, but I can see the appeal for the intended market. But yeah, guys, that is going to be all the doll brands that I was looking at today. I did find it very fascinating looking at these, that they were all so similar. Just because, I don't know, somehow in my head I had thought that maybe because they were produced in different countries, there would be more marked differences in how the dolls look or the clothing designs or something like that. But they were all, like, pretty similar, which on a more positive note, you could say that that could be because the world is just eternally becoming more interconnected. Oceans separating countries no longer is something that can stop those countries from interacting and commingling and all that jazz. On a more negative note, you might say that starting with colonization and then continuing on, this kind of sense of Western ideals being forced on other cultures probably contributed to these dolls looking so similar, but that is just me speculating. I didn't dive deep enough into these to see like, oh, why are all of these dolls so similar? So who can really say? But I do hope that you guys enjoyed taking a look at these doll brands with me. I will say this video was focused, like I said in the beginning, on modern, mass-produced doll brands, but obviously dolls have been a thing for a lot longer than mass production has been a thing, and each culture definitely does have their own kind of doll that is more traditional to them. So I think it'd be really interesting to look into those, like Russian nesting dolls is the first thing that pops up to my mind, and kind of talk about different traditional dolls and the impact on their culture and how the culture formed them and that sort of thing. I don't know, that would be really fun for me because I also really like history and that sort of thing. So if you guys would be interested in me doing a little mini series on my channel about older, more traditional styles of dolls, I would be happy to, so definitely let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, guys, I hope that you had a lovely time watching the video. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be, and I'll catch you next week in the next video. Bye, guys!